Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Penalty Loop Podcast, a podcast about biathlon by Jordan Gottschalk from Penalty Loop and a regular guest, RJ Weiss from Biathlon Analytics.
Dr. J, it's been a while.
It has been a little while. I was actually laughing because it's a minor miracle that Riverside seems to be working tonight with no...
I know, yeah.
We've had so much trouble with it, and we've had these interviews, and I very appreciative that that Matthias especially, but Andrew as well, were very
absolutely patient with us.
With it, I think. Yeah, it was very bad for Matthias. It was only mildly irritating for Andrew, except that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll share that the day of, when we actually do release that. But anyway, yeah. So, how you been?
Good. Yeah, just busy with work. The kids going into their final month. Dolores it's just finishing up report cards, so that's always a busy time.
Yep.
And just the usual family stuff going on, and trying to keep an eye on the biathlon world, but not doing very well with that, because once you don't really follow social media anymore, that seems to be where all the news is happening. I do have a couple of news sites from Germany and France, but they're so out of date that I don't know. I don't even know if they're actively trying to keep up with the news, but
I will always put in a plug for Fondo Italia. They do a really good job of keeping on top of all the latest information, latest news. Even the relatively minor things that you wouldn't think very much of. They do a good job of, who's.
And I must admit, that's one source I don't follow for some reason, because I'm assuming it's Italian, so I can't follow it. And even the French site, my French is not that good, and the translate is just. It's just
kind of rough.
When you read it, it's like, well, it would be really weird if that was the actual. There's one item about the Swedish team, and it says Biathlon, the photo album of Elvira Oiberg and Sebastian Samuelsson, Sweden in training at the Laval Pass.
Well, maybe
that's spot on,
pictures.
But yeah, and the first images of Lisa Vitozzi's return to training.
Oh, fun!
So.
It's nice to have her back. Only big thing I think that's happened since we last chatted was it was confirmed that Sturla has officially gone to Fisher for his skis.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that it wasn't just about money. He wouldn't have done it if he didn't think he was going to have better equipment. So,
and what I also heard is that he actually had a better deal with Matthews.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that.
But that he just... And I think he already... this deal was already done before the end of the season, so it's not like, oh, the Bow brothers are retiring, can I take their spot? I think it was already... And from what I understand, the main reason was that the boots just fit him better, personally. What it did make me wonder about how big that effect of the new Matthews binding system is, because clearly it's not enough to keep him there. So it just kind of makes you think, is it just a gimmick? And I find it interesting because the people just in my environment, I guess, of the biathlon people that I hang out with, they're mostly upset because after years and years of dealing with different bindings, everybody's super happy that now there's basically one standard. Mm-hmm. So if you buy new skis, your boots are still going to fit, where in the old days, wasn't that long ago, you sometimes, if you wanted certain pair of skis, you had to buy boots that would fit the bindings and stuff, and it was just a pain. So from that sense, people are just not happy with the new binding system unless it would be significantly better and different, which it doesn't really appear to be. So, and hopefully when we talk to Emma Lunder, I'd like to ask her, because she switched to Matthews in her last season, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
yeah, see what her experience was.
Yeah, it's Because if I recall correctly, you mentioned in the last podcast that Sturla was he the first who was not in the top 10 skiers and still won the overall? Was it something like that?
I don't remember the exact stats, but it was something like that. Like he was the lowest of the recent
for a long time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe the switch to the skis will change that, but
yeah, absolutely. I guess we will see. We will know.
We will see
next year. This time, we'll be able to have definitive reactions. We'll know exactly what happened.
Yeah,
and I'm obviously being a little bit silly, but I think it's interesting. It's sort of the biggest move I've seen. I haven't seen any other ones, but that doesn't mean they haven't happened. Just haven't been paying that close of attention, but more watching just for any signs of injuries, health issues, and I haven't seen anything like that pop up. Nothing major anyway.
Didn't Vedla Christensen fall?
He had a bit of a fall.
Had a biking accident.
Yeah, a bit of a fall.
Yeah.
Well, we have an interview coming up with Matthias Ahrens, who formerly Canadian national team coach, then over at the BATC, and now working with the youth and juniors in the German system. And we covered a lot. I think anybody who
as always,
listening to us the last couple of times we've talked to Matthias knows that he is a font of information. It's just fun to talk to him because he's willing to talk about. I mean, we could ask him like, have you tried any good breakfast recently? And he would, I'm sure, have a good 15-minute answer.
In-depth analysis.
Yeah, exactly. So he's just a fun guy. And I would try to summarize some of the things you're going to hear about, but it's a little bit of everything. So it's a little bit of his life since he got over there, his experiences in the German system.
I thought that was. I mean, everything is interesting, but that was super interesting. Just the difference between the, how the kids are, I guess, put in a place to succeed compared to Canada. So that was very interesting. But like I said, I always, you look at the time, you're like, man, he's always very generous with his time, and we feel like, oh, we should really not take more. And then, you bring up one more topic, and half an hour later, you're like,
Do you know what the raw recording time was when the?
No, I don't. I know that you went, you had to leave at the end, right?
Yeah, but it was done. Like when I got back, so it must
be close to 2 hours.
Oh, it's over that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't be shocked.
No. Yeah, it's quite long. So obviously it'll be 2 episodes. As you see, if you're listening to this, you can see that this is Matthias Ahrens part 1. So you know what? I think let's cut it there. It's already long enough. Let's let the people listen to the great Matthias.
Sounds good. Have fun, everyone. Matthias, how are you?
Good, thanks. Has been a while.
It has been a while for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we kept texting a little bit, but talking. It's almost, I guess it's 2 years ago when I arrived back in Germany.
Yeah. It's and I think we had plans for last summer, but for some reason it just never seemed to work with schedules. And
right.
So we're really happy to have you on, and I'm really curious how things are with you personally. Of course, if we can expect a new Dahlmeier on the next World Championships in Arbor, some other things to talk about, I'm sure. So how have you been?
Now I think after 2 years being back in Germany, I have a better picture and view about the German system and how training is happening here, the competitive seasons, all that. We're living here in Zwiesel. That's in the Bavarian forest, just underneath Arbor. which is the highest point here, and which is just about 1,500 meter.
Okay.
And the stadium, Arbor Stadium, is at about 1,000 meter, and it seems just at the level where winter starts, because all winter we had a good season from November, end of November till end of March. We actually could ski at Arbor, and but 200 meters below there was not much snow. So the valleys had maybe for 2.5 weeks snow where you could ski in the lower elevations. And
they maintain it really well, or?
Sorry?
Do they maintain the tracks quite well, or do they, yeah?
No, Arbor, the biathlon stadium is excellent in the way that there is snow storage, there's snow production, there is grooming every day. It's well maintained. Of course, the highlight is always every year the IBU Cup, which comes in early January. And next year, of course, it's Junior World Championships, and I think this will be a huge event.
Mm-hmm. Would you say, are they capable of hosting a World Cup event, or?
World Cup event, no. That would be too much in the way of, I mean, there is spectator areas, but it wouldn't take the amount of spectators you usually see on a World Cup in Germany.
Yeah, and I guess you're competing with...
You don't want to compete with places like Ruhpolding or Oberhof. But even at the IBU Cup, and for sure next year at the World Juniors, I think there will be quite a few spectators.
Oh, yeah, I would think so.
We even expecting we will have here in early September German championships, which of course then it's the summer championships being on roller skis, and we're expecting spectators then. So
that'd be nice. Do you know is that's just that's not the typical athlete from the Winter World Cup, right? It's a lot of specialized athletes, I think, for the summer.
No. This is in the way of German athletes. For sure, it's everyone.
Okay.
It's from the World Cup team to the IBU Cup team to the junior team. They will all be here. I mean, certain athletes, of course, on the World Cup are pre-qualified, but there's still German championships count about for 40% towards selection for the winter for open spots still maybe on the World Cup, but more likely on the IBU Cup or on junior events. And the other 60%, there is a qualifier at the end of November in Ruhpolding.
Okay.
Which then is on snow.
And that's just for German athletes?
That's just for German athletes. Even though German championships usually attract some athletes from other nations who participate as guests.
Okay.
And but it's mainly for German athletes.
Right. And how's your group going? How do you feel?
The group has been growing to now 12 athletes, and it's a mix of younger and older. That means younger when I say it's first year 22, because in Germany you only can start shooting with a 22 caliber rifle at the age of 16, and before that it's all air rifles.
Right.
So I have those ones who just are starting, and then I have athletes, juniors who are 20 years old, and so I have half of the group. They finish school and they can train full time. Similar to athletes I coached in Canmore at the Biathlon Alberta Training Center. But and the younger ones I usually pick up after school. I drive them up. That's a 15-minute drive from Zwiesel. We train. I drive them back down, and and so that training is happening in the afternoons and evenings. And
is that typical?
There's cooperation with the school in regards of its partner school of winter sport, it's called. And so athletes get free for training camps, for competitions, which seems normal in Canada. That you can take time off for those activities with no problem. But in Germany, it's very strict how many days you actually have to have in school, and it's not so easy to get time off.
Okay.
So that way, it's good that we have this partnership, but it's not perfect yet, because perfect is when you have a sports school. There's a few in Germany. One, for example, is in Oberhof. Then there is one in Altenberg. There's one in Oberwiesenthal. There is one in Berchtesgaden. So that's the only one in Bavaria for biathlon, in Berchtesgaden. And I also should let you know, this is where I will move to by the 1st of August. So I'm changing the venue and changing my training group to this ski gymnasium in Berchtesgaden, where it's totally aligned, like the academic progress with the high performance or the sports specific progress, and where then actually schedules, like school schedule, is more aligned with training and vice versa, to have it even more optimized for the athletes. They can stretch their academic years a little bit longer. They make up sometimes in, like, where it's regular holiday time, for time lost with training camps or training in general or competitions.
It's kind of the Norwegian system a bit too, right?
Yeah, it's similar to the NTG or ski gymnasiums you see in Norway or Sweden. Yeah.
But if I recall correctly, I think the Gau brothers also they went to a school just outside of Calgary where they got some more flexibility. But
exactly, Eberhard School in Calgary had something similar, and I was always hoping, actually, at the time in Canmore, that something like this could be put together and started, because especially in Canmore, I think it would be optimal with a really high quality training facility and the schools in close vicinity.
Yeah.
And we have tried this. We have tried it on the high school level, and we have tried it even on the post-secondary level. I even made arrangements, and we almost got started with the University of Calgary with a satellite program in Canmore. But then, unfortunately, at the time, there were too many of the athletes were already enrolled in programs at different levels, and we did not get a vital group together to make it work.
Oh,
because,
that's too bad.
Of course, it would have been initial basic courses offered in Canmore, where someone starting fresh on university courses would start. And unfortunately, it fell apart again because we didn't have the vital numbers.
I didn't know you were a teacher too.
No, not.
No, I'm just kidding.
No. I mean, of course, there's pedagogy in coaching, but no,
right.
I'm not a teacher. But I was, quite heavily involved in the negotiations and discussions with the University of Calgary and also with the school board in Canmore on the two different initiatives. And I think that still, I would assume, still would have potential, but it needs the buy-in.
Because so when that didn't work out, was it kind of the end of it? Like it wasn't like, okay, we're not seeing enough now, but maybe we can try it for next year and start a bit earlier. So
no, I mean, it was a lot of effort and energy, I must say, from my side and from some other people, that personally, I felt, okay, I tried now. I also knew that at the time, especially with the university, it was athletes on the national team, and quite a few had already started also correspondence courses with University of Athabasca, for example. And then we just said, okay, we continue that way. This also made it possible for athletes to continue with education, to write exams. I was an invigilator for them, either in Canmore when they had exams online, or even when we were on World Cup tour, where they might have had an exam, and then I could actually get them started, and they would do the exam online, let's say, in Ruhpolding.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever, whoever.
I guess that's the upside of the new, the new mindset of remote school and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, so when you're going to Berchtesgaden, is that the same age groups, or?
The age group is also starting at age 16 and till they finish high school, which in Germany is usually with 13 classes, 13 grades. It's 19.
Okay.
So for about 4 years, I would have students there. And they also have to fulfill a certain performance level. They have to be within the Bavarian team, so performance team. Not like the German team, even though some are also in the youth or junior German development team, but for entry level, they have to be in the Bavarian development team.
So that'd be the same organization, the same group that you are with, just a different location?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that actually raised a question or a thought for me. So how much direction or how much input, I should say, does the national team have with your training groups? So if you have athletes who are also a part of, the national team organization, how much of a say or how much influence do they have in how you organize their training, or not at all, I guess?
In the way of training, maybe not so much directly. It's actually, in a way, I just got back from a German coaching symposium we have every 2 years, where all the national coaches and development coaches are invited for 2 days to exchange. It's continued professional development, exchange of information, and so on, networking. Anyway, there is a framework, like a long-term athlete development model, and that covers, of course, all the groups from the kids to the youth to the juniors to the senior athletes. So that is a standard by what we follow. And then, of course, there are the individual philosophies or training philosophies and methods, what we applied in our training centers. It's also a bit based on what group I'm working with, and also what type of what do I have in the way of infrastructure. One thing is this ski gymnasium in Berchtesgaden is also tied to what's called the Olympic Sports Center, which sort of covers or supports all the Olympic sports, summer and winter, and it gives support in the way of testing, in the way of technical, biomechanical resources, physiotherapy, strength programming, many different sides. And of course, the Olympic athletes get the majority of the benefits and the most of the attention, but it trickles all the way down to the development, especially with a ski gymnasium. And so also the use from training center like group building, which would be partially used by us. We have training areas, a shooting range close to Berchtesgaden, about 20 minutes away from the sports school. But we also use every month for about a week the training or the training facility in group building. And so, yeah, that is how it's being supported, and also why athletes need to have a certain requirement in their performance.
Yep.
Okay. And is there, because I know, Jordan, you know this better, but I know there's always that story of players on the football team and in college in the US, and if they don't have enough grades or good grades academically, that they can be kicked off the team. Is that also something that plays a role?
That for sure. I mean, first, of course, there is also support, academic support, if someone is lacking in certain subjects, and first they get support and extra help, and but if it really comes down to that they cannot advance in because of their marks are not good enough, then it can happen that actually the sport has to
take a back seat.
Sport, or in order to achieve their grades.
Okay.
Because that in general the school system in Germany, it's fairly strict in what you have to achieve from grade to grade. And this is why this is ideal, because in a normal school, like here right now in Zwiesel, that part, you have no chance. You either do your work and you achieve your grades to make the next grade, or you have to do it once more. And but in the sports school, there's a lot more support this way, and they can stretch their time a little bit longer too.
And is that something that the parents need to provide funding?
For sure, there is costs to it, but it's actually minimal. It's mainly cost, not so much the school, but if there is students coming, and most are coming from further away in Bavaria, then they're staying there. They have room and board, and the costs are for room and board.
And they have to pay the bus driver, right?
That's the difference. They don't have to pay for the coach.
Okay.
That is all paid for by the federation. And that's the big difference, because when I look back what Canadian athletes have to pay, like let's say at the Biathlon Alberta Training Center, I remember one athlete, she one season with her training fee, which was about $8,500 for the year. There was also, of course, living costs in Canmore. You know, it's not cheap. And then also the cost of tours, like, going on to a junior IBU Cup tour or a junior world championship tour was, let's say, $4,500-$5,000. And she spent about $20,000 for a whole season.
Wow.
And here in Germany, it's pretty much, education is free. That's already one thing. So after the career, there is no cost. Well, there is no cost, of course, up till graduation from high school. But then also university has no cost besides, books and material for studies. So that helps a lot. And there is no cost for really being part of a training center. There is the only costs are, I say only, there is quite a bit coming together too, is of course a competitive season when traveling to different sites and accommodation and so on.
Right. And are they... Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to talk maybe a little bit about the competitive season. Let's say for youth and junior athletes, it's called staying nationally. It's called the German Cup, and the nice thing is the German Cup is 7 sort of events. The first event is usually late September, mid to late September, and it's in a place like this year it will be in Altenberg. Last year it was in Oberhof. It's 3 events, 2 on roller skis and 1 running, and that's really traditional, and it's all for youth athletes. That's the first German Cup. The junior athletes, they go to German championships, which is just 2 weeks earlier. This year, as I said earlier, it will be at Arbor. And there's also 3 events, but those are all on roller skis, and it's mainly juniors and seniors racing together for German championships.
And so, then, sorry to interrupt you, Matthias, but just to get a sense, like how many, like for those kinds of cups, how many athletes are we talking about? Like 50 or 200 or?
No, it's about German champions. So let's say the German Cup. It's per age category and gender about 25 athletes. So there is a youth 16, 25, so that's 50. There is a youth 17, about the same, so that's 100. And then there's youth 18, 19 is one category. There's about, let's say, 30 or so. That's another 60, so 160. And then there's also some senior racers, those ones who did not make it to an international tour. They are racing on the German Cup, and then there is even some who, with good results, can make it to for sure the younger ones to a junior IBU Cup or a junior World Championships, but also the seniors to, let's say, a IBU Cup, and even very rarely, but sometimes to the World Cup.
And so athletes like I'm thinking Kabinger, who had some injuries.
She did one season where she came from the German Cup and all the way to the World Cup.
Okay.
Yeah.
But sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. But just continuing on the winter, so the winter competitive season would start early to mid-December. And then there is 6 more events. So it's roughly, you could say every second week, there is a German Cup. And it's spread out mostly among the German places, like, again, when I say Arbor, Oberhof, Oberwiesenthal, Altenberg, Willingen, Ruhpolding, of course. And Notray in the Black Forest. So it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Sometimes, from 3 hours up to 7 hours drive to get to those places. And it's usually 2 events. So you travel there on a Thursday, official training on a Friday, racing Saturday, Sunday. Let's say it's a sprint pursuit, and then back home again. And then 2 weeks later, again, the same thing. And mid-season is usually German Winter Championships for youth and juniors, and that has 3 events, so a few more days. And there's an overall ranking in the German Cup. And what else should I say? So in comparison to Canada, it's for sure many more opportunities to race. And I would say this also makes a big difference how German athletes are being trained and prepared to race. Because as you know, in Canada, going between west and east, it's already the same distance as going from east to Europe. And so the cost factor, the time factor is all problematic. That's also why North America has started more with Eastern and Western sort of circuits where, let's say, there is North American Cup or in Canmore, and then the next one is down in Park City, Whistler, Sovereign Lake, like more that way, like in a north-south direction, that where you can actually drive and to reduce cost and time. And then the same out east, let's say between Valcartier and Lake Placid or Presque Isle or something like that.
Right.
But
and so
the competitive level is not, I would say, not the same. The numbers are the same, but in Germany you could say that there's more on a very high level. So and there's more competitions, and this gives really within just Germany a really high level of competition. Versus, I would say, Canadian youth and juniors, really, they have to come to Europe for junior IBU Cups or for an Alpen Cup or Junior World Championships to get this competitive experience. And
Yeah, because I mean, this sounds really disrespectful, and I absolutely don't mean it in a way, but I do think as a Canadian youth, if you're interested in biathlon and willing to put into work, there's not too much competition to make it to the BATC or even to the national level, right? I mean, there's qualification to make it if you're good enough. But it's not like, I'm sure in Germany, there are some athletes that maybe would do quite well here in Canada, but are just not good enough for, getting into top 10 of the German Cup even, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. And so the German Cup, therefore, is also being used as a qualifier to, for example, for World Junior Youth Championships.
Right.
In the early
and so the kids in your group right now, what would you say is the average age of them when they started with the air rifles and focusing on biathlon rather than just cross-country skiing?
Well, this is a point where I say this is the weak point of the German system because it's very early that they already decide or being drawn into either cross-country or biathlon. So with the age of, you can actually by law only shoot air rifle in Germany at the age of 12.
Okay.
So that's also one aspect. But it's also, it seems, compared to when I coached, for example, Canmore Nordic, we had one group of, let's say, youth athletes. We would do the physical and the technical training together, cross-country and biathlon. And then the biathlete would go and shoot, of course, and the cross-country skiers would do a bit more of classic skiing. And I thought it was really nice to shape the base, to really make the foundation, because first and foremost, a biathlete has to be a skier. Right. And this is achieved that way. And here it's almost one group is afraid of the other that they take athletes away. And I was just in this discussion again and gave the example. It's not always, of course, biathlon seems more attractive because of the rifle, but it's not always that way. And I was explaining, looking back, for example, Chandra Crawford, she was a biathlete at the age I coached her. She was in her age 12 to 16. I coached her. And then I still remember we did the qualification races in cross country for her to go to World Juniors in cross country. And so she qualified, went there. And from that time on, she actually switched to cross country. And, her success a few years later when she became an Olympic champion. And on the other hand, Rosanna, her sister, she stayed with biathlon all the time.
Right.
So it's nice when you have that opportunity And as I said, I really believe in this foundation of skiing. The shooting, I think, I feel it might even be better to start right with a 22. And that, of course, in Germany, they can only at the age of 16.
Right.
Before that, it has to be air rifle. And there's such a difference between air rifle and 22 that it takes at least a year or two till they come up to the same level like a Canadian athlete would have who started with a 22, or also an athlete for that matter, because in Norway you can also start already quite early.
Right.
And so there actually it's a disadvantage but that's a legal regulation, and of course we have to follow that.
Yeah. Yep. Do you see a lot of laser replacing the air rifles at all?
Not in the way it has in Canada. And again, I mean, there were mainly technical issues with the cold. That for that reason, there was a big switch at some point. It's happening more, and especially it's happening more for recruitment. And this is actually a nice topic to talk about too, because with a laser, you can go into a school, you can go everywhere pretty much, and make a day of recruitment and a fun day to try biathlon, which we also did here at this school in Zwiesel, where it was a project day. A phys ed teacher, who also has a son in my program, he organized a day where his students could try it out. And there were 21 kids, and they all had fun and liked it, but none actually came afterwards, which is really frustrating, which is actually a problem right now, that the recruitment of new athletes is on a low point. And this is something now, I would say, we struggle here in Germany to get kids, even though it's so attractive sport, let's say, because it's on TV. Like in the winter, it's the number one TV rated sport still. But I think there's two reasons. One is that the climate change, that in lower elevations there's no snow anymore. And so kids cannot step out the door and get on skis and ski or do biathlon. That's one reason. The other one is, maybe the connection between school, club, parents is at a low level of getting kids into the sport. I can only judge now this in cross country and biathlon, but I'm sure that besides soccer, other sports in Germany have the same problem, and so this will be, if no solutions can be found. And I really appreciate what, for example, the IBU is doing with the Biathlon for All. There are so many nations now with that program that different nations can get laser rifles to create initiatives to find new talent and kids engaged into the sport and to make the sport grow again. That's one aspect. The other one is maybe also looking at, and I think this is already happening too, of ways to actually conduct the sport in the summer more.
Yep.
There will be a big event, as you probably have seen, Loop 1 at the Olympic Center
Stadium
in Munich, in the Olympic Stadium there and Olympic Park. I think those kind of things will be hopefully help to let the sport grow or at least maintain. And And yeah, this is definitely something also we struggle in this region. Like my group youth right now, it's still okay at a decent number. But if I look at the rare rifles, there is 2 kids right now. And if you look at the German Children's Cup, so that is the age 12 to 15, there used to be, and it's also a race circuit in the summer for them, in the winter for them. Sorry, there used to be about 200. This year we had one Schüler Cup here at Arbor. There were only 150. So also in other regions it has dropped, and this is definitely a concern.
But it is also part of it. It's more of a general trend that kids are in the house, gaming and more online presence.
Yes, for sure. It's quite. Right. As you're bringing this up, I also had a talk last year. In Germany, you can already in high school. You can. It's called a sports course. So it's not just doing sports, but it's also learning the theory, and it's actually part of exams towards your final exam, towards your graduation. You can sort of major in sports. Okay. Anyway, I had a talk to this class, and there were about, I would say, 30 students I talked to, and they were all in the age from 17 to or 18 to 19, 17 to 19. Anyway, I just spoke about the practical aspects of what they had learned in theory about physiology and how I actually conduct training, physical training with the athlete, and how I monitor and all this. But at the end, we had a bit of a discussion because I was saying, our big issue now, our big threat is not having kids and youth anymore for our sport. And it was interesting. And I asked a little bit, what you think? What are the issues? And there were some athletes in there were also cross-country skiers, and some were biathletes. The majority were involved in other sports. But the most of them said, and I was super surprised that they would say it themselves, is too much time on a cell phone or on a tablet, smartphone.
Right.
And so I think for sure that is one aspect.
Do you think
the mentality in Germany has changed a little bit of, how should I say, before it was always let's say there is school events, like a local, regional, national, let's say, school events, similar to, let's say, Alberta Winter Games or Canada Winter Games, but more between the schools. And now they don't want to give marks or times or anymore. There's resistance to that. And on the other hand, the school system is completely on marks. If you don't make your marks, you cannot advance to the next grade.
Right.
It's quite contrary that way, but it also has created issues.
And how do you think the climate change impacts the loss of interest? Like, I'm thinking kids are maybe not as aware, but do you think there's parents that are like, well, by the time my kid would be old enough to be in the World Cup, there may not be enough snow? Or is there more focus on the roller skiing?
No, I think it might not attract, or it's not so easy when you don't have the snow in front of your door because it involves more driving. So there is more logistics behind it. But if there is parents, and there is for sure more parents here than, let's say, in Canada, because there are several generations who came up doing winter sport. So there, I think in that way, there is still the support by the parents to drive kids, but maybe less. And of course, the time, what it needs or in training. Right. And if you have to drive every day, then it's That's why, for example, I pick up kids at school, bring them up to the training center, and bring them back down again. And so to help that way.
And maybe the parents are too much on their cell phones too now.
Well, I guess that's, we could say for all of us.
Yeah.
But it's also that, it also has changed. In North America, it's pretty normal that both parents work, but now in Germany too, there's not so many anymore who are homestay moms or dads who then have time to look after the kids' schedule. And so that way it's a challenge, and I would say maybe even a bigger challenge than, of course, Canada. It depends. When you have the infrastructure somewhere, then it works well. If you don't have it, of course, then the sport is not happening because it's so huge. But the stronghold in Germany is still the system of what would you call it? The overall arching. What I want to talk about is like the army, the police, and the customs.
Yeah.
So at the age of 16, 17, if someone finishes school, then they can already they can't go to the army, but they can, for example, go and become a police officer or a customs officer. In the army, it has to be the age of 18. But anyway, but in order to get there, of course, they have to have a high level. So that means junior national team in order to get a spot in those institutions. But then they're looked after perfectly because they get a salary and they can train full time. And this is a huge, how should I say, challenge because a lot of teams, training centers, clubs, and teams are trying to get, of course, their youth athletes already at a very young level to the podium or in the top in order for them to achieve those spots. And I think I'm not a strong believer this is the right way. I think I'm more thinking the long term, and I think this way we lose a lot of talents at our early age.
Right.
For example, if someone has not made it by age 19 into one of those institutions teams, then they might not see a progression.
Future in
and they actually stop biathlon. And from my experience, working with the Canadian athletes, if we look at all of them, Brandon Green and Nathan Smith, Rosanna Crawford, just to name a few, their best performances were 28, 30, 32. It was, and if they would have stopped, then we would have never seen it.
Right.
At age 19, 20.
Thinking just this year about someone
I think here in Germany we lose talents who are sort of late mature, and that is sad. And right now I have a group here where actually some are finished high school and they're trying to see what they can still do after school. And we tried also, like some are actually doing some correspondence courses. And one is actually doing a trade. He's learning a trade as a carpenter. But there's challenges with that because, of course, you need time for that. You have to do your training versus the athletes who are in those institutions. They train full time. That's their job. And they have accommodation and they have all the resources, support, and so it's hard for.
Are they even supported nutritionally? Are they even supported nutritionally? So do they get food provided so that they eat healthy and that kind of thing, or is it on their own?
Well, in general, it's on our own. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, athletes who are in those institutions, they have the opportunity to eat there.
Right.
But otherwise, athletes at the training centers or in the clubs, of course, they have to provide their own or are still at home.
Right. And is there any expectation? So Benny Dole retired. I think he was with Customs.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is there an expectation that you work for them at least a couple more years, or can you basically quit that job as soon as you quit becoming a biathlete? Or
there's different ways of. There's certain time frames, let's say, with the Army, and because that is actually not a profession per se, or seen as a profession. That's a service. Versus customs or police is a profession. That's also why, for example, right now, all those elite athletes are actually in school. They are at the police school or customs school, and they learn to become a police officer, for example. Okay. That goes until the end of July. Of course, they're also training. They have some time to train, but they are also, for most part of the day, they're in school. And that way, after a few years, they become an officer and they can continue in that profession if they want.
Okay. That's
but
good.
They don't have to.
Okay, so it's not. There's significant investment over their career.
Yeah,
but there's not an expectation per se that you stay and work for them. Okay.
Quite a few do so.
Well, I think that's the hard part for athletes that retire when they're later, like in their 30s.
Yeah.
It's because they do have education, but that's one of the hard things here too. In Canada, it's at some point you gotta make some money too and build up a career. So
yeah.
We touched it a little bit, but I'm curious: is there a vision, or are there discussions in the DSV, the German Ski Federation in general, about the future of biathlon with the climate change and the?
It's a high priority. It's now part also of coaches' education, sustainability, mainly all aspects of sustainability, and of course also. So that's coaches' education. There's also the federation efforts how to promote still the sport by a lot of critique that this is maybe not a sport. Like this sport takes up energy, with the snowmaking and with driving to wherever snow is and all those. So there's some political pressure that way, but so the federation really pushes the benefits of what it means, and of course the German Ski Federation has the different disciplines. So there is not just biathlon. There's cross country. There's alpine skiing, ski across, freestyle, snowboard. There's all the snow gliding sports in it, and so they really promote that and push that, and also towards the schools, because there's also resistance in the schools, and so that it's still being attractive and still, but being sustained.